Well, folks, I'm just going to wait for some people to get on board here, and then I'm going to have a little chat or a little rant, if you will, about something on my mind here. So hopefully, hopefully people are going to get on board. And I don't want to be all day with this, so we'll see how many people we can get. And then I thought better to do this live than to just record a video and then, just post it later. So waiting for people to get on board, and then I will talk with you a little bit about emails that I'm getting today that really have nothing to do with me or the life I live anymore, but are pertinent to the bodybuilding and fitness world that we live in. So hopefully people can join me on board. The numbers, will wait for the numbers to crawl up a little bit. Hopefully everyone can see and hear me okay. And I'm just going to wait for the numbers to get up here and then get through what I need to say. So by all means, hit your share button, and I'll get on with it. So I wish I had more lighthearted conversation to do on an impromptu live, but I don't. Like I said, I'll wait for people to get on board. By all means, let me know you can hear me and see me okay with, emoticons across the screen or whatever. So I'm just going to wait for the audience to build. I'm glad the audio is clear. Obviously, if people are following social media feed, then they know in the last couple of days of the deaths of a young lad, Dallas McCarver, bodybuilder, and very apparently popular online bodybuilding personality, Rich Piana. Sorry for my stuttering and stuff. I'm a little bit off my game because of all this stuff, but the silence, I think, is deafening, and the wrong kind of people are making the wrong kinds of statements. So I think someone should step up to the mic and say something that actually has value here, and I'm hoping you'll find value in it. A lot of people are going to be offended by the rant that I have to say. I jotted down some quick notes, so it's not exhaustive by any means. But I need to get this out, so I'm going to do so. Some people have asked me to do so. I was thinking against that for most of the day, but I thought better of it, given what's going on and all the nonsense that social media tends to be about. I don't think we should be glorifying the death of preventable deaths. We should be learning from them. And I've had way too much of that in my bodybuilding experience. So it's a sobering conversation. I hope I get through it without getting too upset. So before anyone accuses me of not knowing what I'm talking about when I get into this, it would be obvious that you don't know my background if you're going to say that. I was involved into the highest levels of bodybuilding, hardcore bodybuilding, for more than 20 years probably. Had columns in magazines, ghost wrote for magazines, wrote feature articles for magazines, wrote articles about drugs for magazines. So my background is probably more on the insider circle than 90% of the people out there who are going to be hearing this and who are obviously going to attack me for the things I'm about to say. Needless to say, I'm not coming at this with just an opinion. I'm coming at this from a former insider opinion, and I think people need to keep that in mind. I helped dozens of people earn national titles in bodybuilding and pro cards, not just in Canada, but in the United States and all over the world as well. So I know what goes into the whole notion of what it takes to compete and all these things. So so I'm going to be lecturing on that, and hopefully you'll be following me on that. I'm going to shrink my comment section so I won't be able to see them for a little bit. And I think that's just so I can get through these talking points in what I have to say. So I'm angry as hell this morning, this afternoon now. It's been following me all day. I don't like to hear about the death of anybody, but when it comes in the industry that I'm in, or at least I'm in parts of or what was in, then of course it bothers me. But I'm not angry at Rich Piana. I'm not angry at Dallas McCarver at all. I feel sad for them. I feel sad for their families. But I'm angry as hell at all the apologists and the defenders of the bodybuilding hardcore subculture and those who continue to live in denial that it is indeed a drug subculture. That's what it is. That's what it's been for years and years. And these apologists that keep coming forward to say things like, oh, well, now people are going to say it's the drugs that cause these deaths. Well, of course, people are going to say that. It's obvious, and it's correct to be saying that. Just taking a look at pictures of these two gentlemen, and you know that there's something wrong with what you're seeing there. So, yeah, I mean, of course, people are going to say it's the drugs. And then I've been following social media and these people that have been having podcasts in the last few days or the last week since Rich Piana was put into a medically induced coma. All kinds of drugs found at his home and a white powder with a straw. No surprise to me. The higher I got in the bodybuilding world, and I got to the very heights of the bodybuilding world, folks, the more perverse that subculture got. And I can tell you wholeheartedly that it's a drug subculture and not a whole lot more. So when I watched over the course of the last week, all these apologists and defenders of the hardcore bodybuilding drug subculture come forward and try to defend these as rare occurrences and unfortunate circumstances and defend the lifestyle instead of having the legitimate hardcore conversation about it, that's who I'm angry at. I'm not angry at Rich. I never even knew who he was until people were writing me that he was put into a medically induced coma. And then, of course, within 2 weeks, Dallas McCarver, who was only 27, 28 years old, he dies. And now, of course, people are going to come on board and say, well, he died choking on his food. Well, people don't realize when you're that big, there's all kinds of hypertrophy separate from muscles that go on in the body. Other things like sphincters and stuff can get affected by being that big. A lot of bodybuilders I knew who were big in my day before I left that world had issues like sleep apnea and other things, and they had dangerous levels of sleep apnea where their hearts would stop beating in the middle of the night and things like that, just as if they were massively obese. So it occurs to me that people need to stop defending this lifestyle. And these people on these podcasts, they need to have people like me on their podcasts to give an opposing point of view rather than all this, apologetic, defensive nonsense glorifying the bodybuilding hardcore drug-using subcultures. So, when I first heard about Rich Piana, I did searches and Google searches and Google Images searches. There's all kinds of pictures of him in training tops that have quotes on them. One of the quotes is whatever it takes. Well, is death part of whatever it takes, folks, to be part of the hardcore bodybuilding subculture? You'd be surprised how often the answer to that question is yes. Rich was also known, and kudos for him for being honest about his use of PEDs. And one look at the guy, and duh, folks, if you even have to ask if people that look like that take drugs, then you need a reality check. But he also said in some of the stuff I was doing to research this, that yes, he takes drugs to get that big, but he knows how to do it right, and he knows what he was doing. Listen, folks, there is no right in taking the amounts of super physiological doses of polypharmacy that it takes to look like that. And now the man's dead. So let's not defend the indefensible here. Let's not pretend there's a right way to take massive doses of drugs beyond what's used in medical treatment All right, and let's not say that that's somehow something you can do right without health risk. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So I'll calm down a bit. I don't want to be losing it here. And it's very sad, and it's very angry producing that the people, instead of wanting to have podcasts about the hardcore bodybuilding culture, instead of wanting to have an honest conversation, they take to social media like I'm doing now and as apologists and defenders of the hardcore drug using subculture. Enough already. I was at the top of that world. I walked away from that world because I was disgusted with what I saw the higher up I got. And I was at the top of that mountain peak, and I stayed there for years until I couldn't take it anymore because of the drug subculture. So I want to show you something now, and I hope you can see it. I'll shrink my notes for a second. So I hope you can see. This is a plaque that hangs on my wall in my office. All right. And it says, presented to Scott Abel, an appreciation for your dedication, expertise, and patience, but most of all, your friendship. From your 1998 Ontario Masters champion. '99 Canadian Masters champion. Your friend always, Tom Hall. December 25th, 2000. Now, I helped Tommy win the Masters Championship provincial level. I helped him win the Canadian Nationals, as you see here. And then the following year, I helped him win the North American Championships. At that point, he was a Masters competitor. And at that point, he wanted to do one pro show. He wanted to do one pro show just to say he did. I told him I wouldn't train him for that. I told him at his age, being over 40, the amount of muscle he would have to put on wasn't realistic for him, and it would do more harm than good. At that point, he still wanted to be friends, of course, but he decided there was another guy who could train him for his first pro show, and Tommy thought he could put on 20 to 25 pounds of muscle in a year, which I told him was not realistic and very dangerous to do. So he went with his other so-called coach and trainer. He started putting on all kinds of weight. He was bulking up at age 44, 45. And he would call me every so often, and his voice was changing. All of a sudden, he sounded all marbly mouth, like I could hardly understand him, and that was a different thing for him. He had always been in shape with me being on the cycle diet and stuff. And then the next time I saw him, I almost didn't recognize him. He was at least 40 pounds heavier, mostly fat. He had big, bloated moon face. And I told him I was worried about him. But he was getting ready for a pro show, and it was all great, and this and that. And I told him, of course, I didn't want to hear about his drug use because I could tell just by looking at him what he was doing. And then, I saw him, I wished him well, and I told him I didn't approve of what he was doing. And then the next time I heard anything about him, he was dead. Tommy had a massive heart attack, and he died. And he died needlessly. And since then, I've known at least 10 or 15 other people that you'll never hear about because they don't have an online following, who have also died or have ruined their lives from being part of the hardcore bodybuilding culture. And I think, I left that world and I decided myself that was it for me. I was pretty honest myself about my performance-enhancing drug use. I tried to educate people. I was part of the interviews for the Dublin inquiry after the Ben Johnson scandal. I knew a lot and know a lot to this day about that topic, but I was done with it. I walked away from that. And another fellow who was a former client of mine, he heard me say that I was done with the bodybuilding world and done with the drugs. And he made a statement along the lines of, Abel will never get off the drugs. He can't handle shrinking. Everyone knows he's a freak. That's his whole identity. Well, this person was just projecting onto me his own biases about himself, because that person died at age 44 on the gym floor of a massive heart attack. Someone else who would not get off the drugs. Both Tommy and this person I'm referring to competed as middleweights, which is 176.5 pounds. And they were trying to compete as super heavyweights, just something obviously ridiculous. And then, of course, the deaths of other people who were known drug abusers all along, people that I trained, but not for very long, who were involved in all kinds of the drug subculture of bodybuilding. So, people like Greg Kovacs pops to mind. No one was surprised when Greg Kovacs died. He was well known for pushing the edges of growth hormone and insulin and all the rest of it. So I want to say, let's not glorify lives that end in needless and preventable tragedy. Saying things like so-and-so of these two gentlemen live life to the fullest. Really? Dying before old age of something completely preventable? Part of living life to the fullest is to live a full life for a long time. Not die before the age of 30 and at the age of 46 like Rich Piana died. Let's have an honest conversation about that. Let's stop glorifying someone's life and let's start learning the lessons that can be learned. All right? Life on the lunatic fringe is why I got out of this. I'm not going to read your comments right now, folks, or I won't get through this. So for the life of me, let's stop equating any of this level of development. If you look at pictures of Dallas McCarver and Rich Piana, two people I had no idea who they were up until a few weeks ago. Let's stop equating that something like this has anything to do with fitness and a healthy lifestyle. It's amazing to me that these fitness conventions have these people signing autographs and stuff under the banner of fitness. This is ridiculous. This is the lunatic fringe. These people's physiques look like cartoon characters. And obviously, it takes something along the lines of abuse to produce that kind of cartoon character physique. There's nothing healthy about it. There's nothing fit about it. There's nothing about living life to the fullest about it. It's a drug subculture. Hardcore bodybuilding is a drug subculture, nothing more. And I know I forged my career at the top of that world for a good 20 years or more, and I walked away because of the sickening levels of drug use, not just performance-enhancing drugs, but recreational drugs as well. And now these are the high profile. What you're seeing here in just 2 weeks, Dallas McCarver and Rich Piana, are the high profile stories you hear about. But what about all the ones that don't make it to social media viral news? The ones who have died, like Tommy, that I just read you the plaque that he sent me for a Christmas one year. That's why it's so hard for me to get through reading that. And so many others that I know about and you may not, or in your area, only your local area knows about it. Apparently, 4 people just in the 2 provinces adjacent to me have died this year in the competitive season. Also had a former client who I hadn't heard from in a year, and I get a phone message from some lady whose voice I don't know, who was apparently his girlfriend. He hung himself in rehab. Why? Because the performance-enhancing drugs led to all kinds of recreational drugs to help him sleep, to help him get up, to help him work out. And I saw this more and more and more. I got tired of it when I saw ladies competing in figure using cocaine to lose weight and methamphetamine to lose weight, and then glorifying online that they were doing something healthful and fit. Let's stop. Like the ones like my friend Tommy and so many others What about all the competitors who blow up their lives every year that you never hear about? What about the female competitors who ruin their bodies for life, ruin their metabolisms while glorifying all of it as being wonderful until it's not? And it's not. So why don't these podcasters, rather than just having people on who defend the drug subculture and deny its issues, why don't they have people like me on their shows? People who have been there at the top and existed there at the top and walked away in order to live and to help other people live as well. This is like Holocaust deniers, for crying out loud, denying reality and not learning from history, defending the indefensible. Let's have a real and honest and sincere conversation about the potential consequences of being a freak, as if it's a good thing. I've known far too many who have died needlessly and died young, and who have ended up with devastated lives, if the ones who have lived, who have ruined their lives irrevocably. And I realize I open up myself now to vicious attacks here because these people have or had a more massive following online than I do, apparently. Social media loves the lunatic fringe, and they'll want to kill the messenger here. They'll want to come to this podcast and they'll want to throw daggers at me and insult me and say I never knew either of these people. I don't have to know them. I know the subculture inside and out. It's why I walked away from it. I know what goes on, and I know the kind of lives that it takes to live like that. So let's get real about getting real, because life's way too short to be dying to be huge. I feel really, really my heart goes out to these two guys and their families. What a shame. Let me read you something else. I'm sorry I'm losing it, but touches me deep. I would have loved to have stayed within the competition subculture. I cut my teeth there. I forged myself there, but it got to be too friggin' ridiculous. And as an intelligent person, I knew if I wasn't part of the solution, then I was part of the problem. So I wholeheartedly walked away from that and built a career outside of that. So let me tell you, 10 years ago, a very popular pro, so I won't use his name, but I kept this email, and he wrote me, and I have his drug stack and things like that. Now, I won't read his diet and things like that, but let me put on my glasses here. During his pre-workout, 10 IUs of Humalog insulin 10 minutes before training, and another 20 minutes, and another 10 IUs of insulin 20 minutes during the workout. That's okay. That's included in the diet part. Now, his cycle was testosterone enanthate, 500 milligrams every third day, trenbolone enanthate, 200 milligrams every third day, equipoise, 200 milligrams every third day, anadrol 50 milligrams per day week 1, 100 milligrams a day for week 2 and 3, 50 milligrams a day for week 4, growth hormone, 10 IUs per day, 5 in the morning, 5 before bed, tamoxifen, which is an anti-estrogen, 20 milligrams per day, proviron, which is an anabolic and an anti-estrogen, 50 milligrams per day. And then when he started dieting, the test enanthate, the trenbolone acetate, equipoise, and then he added Winstrol V, 50 milligrams a day injectable. And then 8 weeks out, testosterone propionate, 100 milligrams every day, testosterone enanthate, 500 milligrams every week, trenbolone acetate, 100 milligrams every day, primobolan, 3 times a week, 200 milligrams each time, Winstrol V, 50 milligrams per day, Masterone, 100 milligrams every other day, T3, which is thyroid, start at 25 micrograms per day, building up to 150 micrograms per day for the last 2 weeks. Clenbuterol, 40 micrograms a day week 1, 80 micrograms a day week 2, then week 3 off and then repeat. Growth hormone, 10 IUs a day again. Insulin up to 4 weeks out, 5 to 10 IUs after a workout. and proviron goes up to 100 milligrams a day, and tamoxifen goes up to 40 milligrams per day. So as you can see there, folks, if you're staying in line with me, what you see there, of course, is a kitchen sink approach to drug use, and that was 10 years ago. All right, so basically treating your body like a toxic waste dump, and then turning around and going online, these people, and acting like they respect their bodies. You have no respect for your body when you're going to pollute it with that kind of toxicity of mega dosing. All right, and who's having these conversations? We need to have these conversations. Let's stop glorifying these conversations, and I hope you're hitting the friggin' share button, and I know I'm going to get attacked for all this from the fans, because there was millions of fans involved apparently. But can't we learn the lessons from tragedy rather than trying to glorify lives, and learn? I mean, I walked away from this world, and I'm not a stupid person. I walked away from it for a reason. And now I'll get to your comments, I think. And then I just I thought I better do this live rather than just making a bunch of bullet points and recording them, sort of unemotionally, and then posting them as if I was just someone with an opinion. I put my heart and my soul into my work. I've been passionate about it my whole career, helping people. And I knew, for me, when I was at the pinnacle, the summit, the top of that mountain in the competitive hardcore bodybuilding world, the only way I was going to be able to help people was to walk away from it. And yet people are still dying and ruining their lives. So anyway, so my heart goes out to these people, but to the apologists, the hardcore bodybuilding defenders that you see in the magazines that are now on podcasts, give your friggin' head a shake. Let's have an honest conversation, for crying out loud, about what goes on. All right, let's stop saying, oh, now they're going to blame drugs, and drugs had nothing to do with this. Drug had everything to do with this. It's a drug subculture, for crying out loud. And I'm tired of watching the bodies mount and the lives being ruined. And that's just the males. That's just the males who have died young and stuff. And what about the females? All the ones out there who lie about being natural and show up at figure, and now even in bikini, and who are writing me months later with ruined lives, let alone metabolisms. You're a long time dead, folks. So people saying, oh, so-and-so was a freak, or at least he died huge. Those are about the stupidest comments I would ever want to hear. And they're on the level of moron, really. Like, this isn't James Dean, live fast, die young, and leave a good looking corpse. They're leaving behind people who cared about them and loved them. And for what? For what, really? So someone would want your autograph and a picture with you, all those kind of things. So I'm all about the bodybuilding lifestyle, folks. I believe in it, but let's separate that from the hardcore drug subculture that the hardcore bodybuilding world is. Those are separate animals. Those are separate things. I just read you one of a stack that I knew 10 years ago. So when people like poor Rich goes online and says, yes, I take performance-enhancing drugs, but I know what I'm doing. Well, he's dead now. Does it sound like he knew what he was doing? You can't take those kind of doses to make your body look like a cartoon character and think there's no health consequences to that. You're polluting your body. And to turn around and act like you're a subculture who respects your body and all it does for you is hypocrisy. So let's get real about getting real. So I can't say anymore, folks. I'm done. Thanks for tuning in.